Into the ropes and off. A flying tackle by and a drop kick.
10 pounds of pure gold.
Got to hold it just a minute. You want a little bit more?
I'm the real heavyweight champion.
Gotta be the best that means more to me than anything I've ever done in wrestling.
They call this the 10 pounds of gold championship. As existed in a truck profit.
That can was pretty hard, and look at Buddy gonna work now. Oh!
Hey everybody, it's Durger time. Welcome back to another episode of Total Extreme Wrestling 2020, Billy Corgan's NWA. And we are here, we're not doing any preambles, we are here to watch our big event, our next pay-per-view, MidAtlantic Mayhem. We got a pretty good card pre-booked already. We know we have Pillman Jr. versus Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho's last performance in NWA until our talent trade is over. So we know that Jericho will lose, spoiler, but we don't know to who. We don't know if it's going to be Pillman. We don't know if it's going to be a cash-in of the Founders Clause. Is something that we are really going to have to find out together. And it's really going to be determined by what I can get Chris Jericho to agree to. So even I really don't know at this point. Jericho currently was not a fan of putting over Pillman, but maybe I can kind of, persuade him. We'll see. If not, we'll have to give it to Brody Lee in his Founders Clause. I'm not really sure where we're going to go with that, and if that's part of it, we'll have to find out and kind of find out together. We also have Colt Cabana and Flip Gordon in an I Quit match. We got Kimberly versus Sasha Banks versus Tessa Blanchard in a triple threat for the title. We have the Villains for Hire versus the Von Erichs. We also don't have it pre-booked, but I believe we also have Eli Drake versus Eddie Kingston. And we have Nick Aldis versus whoever is willing to fight him. And presumably that's going to be Billy Corgan's mystery signing. So overall, pretty packed show. We have 2 hours for it. So there's going to be tons of other segments. We're going to try to give pretty much everybody something to do. For the most part, that'll be kind of the plan. But those are our big main events, or our main segments at least. We did pre-book 4 of them, and we'll be curious to see how that handles for us. Now we do have a backstage incident, so let's take a look at what we got. Incident involving Ricky Starks. Starks was in fine form for the show, keeping everyone in a great mood. Also, spoilers, I guess. I did sign David Starr. Price was really cheap, and I think he's going to fit in really well in the NWA. So I kind of wanted to add him for some fresh faces. We might even debut him here at the show. And apparently, he lifted the locker room with a silly game he created. I don't think his attributes are right. When I was looking back at his backstage attributes, he's a little too positive. I feel like he would be a little bit more of a not negative influence but like a troublemaker or something like that, because he's constantly pushing for unions and workers' rights, which is all great for the workers, but I would imagine it's probably adversarial for the actual owners and bookers of the organization. Are probably a little bit much to handle. Now, we got to do our locker room controls. Let's go ahead and let's just meddle. We do have enough people upset that we could do an open forum. I don't really want to. Instead, let's just try to get some kind of relationship somewhere. And that did not work. Not a big deal. Broadcasters for this event have not been set yet. You can access other sections can completed this task. Not a big deal. Let's go ahead and do that. We're going to be on Fight TV, which is what we had set up. I think that is for the best instead of doing YouTube originals or Twitch. I think Fight TV selling on there, even though it's only a tiny, should be okay for us in terms of revenue. Minimum quality is 24. And our deal for the NWA is a 50% split, which is pretty good. Let's go ahead and select that. Are you sure you want to save this? No, I want use this broadcaster. Done. Perfect. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Be on Fight TV. we are going to be in the Mid-Atlantic. Pick best option. Which North Carolina sounds fine. What are we looking at here? We're expecting 1,000 people, which is not bad for our pay-per-view. It would be a little bit more if we were in the southeast, I think. Not by much, though. Not by much. But the goal here is to have a show in the Mid-Atlantic region that will apparently pick best options just the same each time, different things each time. Ultimately, the goal here is to boost some of our Mid-Atlantic ratings and try to develop that territory as sort of our second base of operations as we expand out from the southeast. So, having a show here, we have a very large potential fan base here, which is nice. We have spillover in the tri-state region. We're still going to have spillover from the southeast, and we're also Great Lakes. So this all overall, I think, works pretty well for us here. And we have not had a show here in this region yet. And I think that's about it in terms of what we need to worry about. I said the pre-booking, we did have set up. I don't know where we can see the bonuses of it, but I would have liked to seen where it was in terms of a boost, because obviously how it's set up is that if you have a big match, like Chris Jericho should draw extra people. I don't see anything about like the numbers in terms of where we potentially got those numbers from, or if we got a bonus from the pre-booking, but it might be in the match screen. I've not dealt with it yet, so I'll be kind of curious to see where that comes out of. All right, so we got 120 minutes to book. I think we could pretty much get everybody on the show for the most part. We got to be anywhere between 90 to 150 minutes. We might actually be closer to the 90 minutes, just based on roster size. We'll have to see. But this is what we got. Let's go ahead and let's run the show. I will be back on the flip, and we will take a look at Mid-Atlantic Mayhem. All right, everybody. I think we are ready for Mid-Atlantic Mayhem. We got 120 minutes in the bag. Pretty much everyone was used in some capacity. We do have some problems we need to look at going further in the future. Mostly is that we need to get a second road agent because it's too much work for Alice in Danger. Thankfully, I kind of got Colt Cabana to do some of it, but I don't know how that performance is going to be. So something to keep in mind for the next episodes. We're going to need to look for maybe a second road agent for these events because they're just a little too much for one person to handle. All right, let's run it. So we start to show off in the pre-show. We give Tim Storm a win against Caleb Conley. Tim Storm still a favorite on the show. We got to give him something to do, and we'll let him kind of become something on the lower card as we move him down the line. The match is pretty okay, I think, overall. Caleb had a 43, Storm had a 39. Had decent wrestling, did not have much heat, but Tim Storm does defeat Caleb in 8 minutes by pinfall with the Eye of the Storm, and we give our buddy a little bit of a win. Afterwards, we see that Josephus is watching Tim Storm's win ominously from the sidelines. Tim Storm definitely seems spooked by it, but nothing comes of it for now. Maybe hinting at a future issue between Josephus and Tim Storm. Segment doesn't do great. We just have Allison Danger do some commentary on here. Apparently she was set for the commentary booth for events for some reason, which I didn't change it for everything because I kind of wanted to see how she performed. Unfortunately, her gimmick got a poor rating. We don't get any specific bonuses or anything like that from her being on the commentary team, though. Josephus clearly enjoyed having the freedom to go off script, as did Tim Storm. Still in the pre-show, we have Wheeler Yuta and Jason Cade versus Ricky Ruffin and Royce Isaacs. We give Wheeler and Cade a win, trying to legitimize them a little bit in our tag team scene. Obviously, potential competitors for the Crockett Cup, which we will be getting a lot of different people from across the indies and especially our alliances as we try to develop that in some capacity. So giving Wheeler a little bit of a win. probably is something that's going to work well for him in the future. Overall, it's not great, but it does fine. And it's a pre-show match, so it really doesn't matter that much. Announcing quality did lift the match a bit, and Cade and Wheeler had a 41, Isaacs and Ruffin had a 35 and a 30 respectively. So, I mean, hey, they're not bad. A 41 is not too bad. I mean, if you think about it, Tim Storm was a former NWA World's Heavyweight Champion, and he only got like a 39. So Wheeler already at a very young age has a stronger in-ring performance. So if we just can get his popularity up, I think he could be a pretty good singles competitor in the mid-card especially. And we don't start the show yet. Actually, this might be the start of the show already. I don't remember if this was a pre-show match or not. I think this was not. I think this was the first of the show. We have the NWA Women's Division Scramble, basically giving all of the female workers that were not on the show something to do. I tried to pretty much have everybody doing something. It's costly, but the morale penalties are not worth it for me, especially now that their prices aren't horrendous. Though it had a terrible wrestling match, non-existent crowd heat. Nicole Matthews defeats the rest of them, pins Skylar with a Vancouver maneuver. The ring performances are all over the place, and probably after this one, our next episode, we're going to look at maybe who we can hire. I've noticed that with the changes to the contracts, some people that previously were out of the question are hireable in our alliance, and it might be something that we might look towards. There are some people in AEW especially that we might look at, or some people in Impact we might want, and we can kind of start to maybe develop a stronger women's division roster, and maybe groom some of these out. So we'll be looking at some of these performances and looking at what to remove, I think. I think actually this is the start of the show. We have the Villains for Hire, the champions, versus the Von Erichs, the challengers. This match is not great. Gets a 32, start to show off fine. It was actually, crowd was already hot and didn't need working, surprisingly. So the previous matches got them hot. Though we lose heat for our segment, but ultimately in 12 minutes, the Von Erichs do defeat the Villains for Hire with a surprise cradle. The cradle comes, I don't know if it says it in here, but it should. Marty's scroll should be in ringside. I thought I put it in here, that there was going to be a botched distraction. Perhaps I did not put it in there. But basically, Marty kind of screws up a bit of the distraction for them, gets Brody King kind of distracted a little bit, and Von Erichs get a win. So keeps the Villains strong, gives the Von Erichs a little bit of legitimacy. Overall, not too bad. I think we're going to see if we can hire their dad to manage them. Because I think we could use the popularity bonus. So something we'll have to look at on the next show. Overall, Brody King's definitely the weak link of the bunch. The rest of them were fine in various degrees. Chemistry was great all around, though, inside each team, not necessarily between each other. Unfortunately, though, it's only a 32, but it's early on in the show. It's not horrendous. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, he shouldn't be babyface. I don't know why he was set as babyface here, but we got that fixed. Our women's division championship match is a little bit better. So 48. We have Kimberly and Sasha Banks both challenging in a triple threat match against Tessa Blanchard. In that match, Tessa defeats both of them. Tessa actually submits Sasha Banks with a figure four lock and makes defense number one of the women's world title. Kimberly was a weak link of the bunch, kind of struggling to keep up there. I specifically wanted Sasha to take the pin because we're going to be basically sending her on her way, and I did not want to lose any potential from Kimberly. Tessa had a benefit from her flavor of the month, and did get the crowd hotter, so we kind of regained some momentum from the previous match. And we did gain heat for the storyline that we're about to end. Overall, not bad. Nick Aldis comes out and demands his opponent that he was not scheduled for on the show. Billy Corgan returns to the NWA, and he says he has brought his opponent, and he debuts Miroslav or Rusev. I think a lot of people figured it out by now, gave some hints out, but yeah, we're going to have Rusev show up on NWA. I think his old style powerhouse is definitely going to go well. Then we did a little bit of a twist because he's obviously going to be a face for us. So he's going to be a face brute trying to fight against the board of directors. Segment does pretty well. He gets a great debut. And in the match, Miroslav just ends up swinging Nick Aldis around, defeats him in 5 minutes by pinfall with Bullplex. Aldis had a 53, Miroslav had a 67. Pretty good. What I like about having him here with Miro here is that we can easily have him face or heel. He has strong in-ring performance, so we can kind of do whatever we want with him. It's kind of a blank slate, and I think he'll fit in nicely. And honestly, the price wasn't horrendous. And for that in-ring performance, I'm very happy for the roster price that we were getting for him. Segment ultimately gets a 48, not bad. Matt Cross challenges Scott Steiner for the Shoney's Championship, but cannot get there. Scott Steiner does defeat Matt Cross with a Steiner recliner. Cross had a 21, which seems wrong. I think this was on Brawl, though, so I think that was where he suffered. I wanted to try to get Steiner's performance better, but I think we suffered a little bit from having Matt Cross struggle in the match. Hungry's for Shoney's storyline does advance, but we lose heat for it. Unfortunate, but the Shoney's Championship is retained by Scott Steiner. Matt Cross just doesn't have what it takes yet. We have our I Quit match between Colt Cabana and Flip Gordon. It's an I Quit match, and ultimately, though, the Colt is too powerful. Flip Gordon is simply unable to knock the senses out of Colt Cabana, and Flip Gordon ultimately has to quit after a very brutal submission. During the match, we had Josephus distract Gordon, kind of leading to the culmination, and Flip just can't seem to get his friend back. We do foreshadow a heel turn for Colt Cabana, which should have happened already, but I think because of the save conversion, it just wasn't there, so we will address that now. He is currently a heel, and is now using a brainwash gimmick. It got great, and turn was a complete success. So we will maintain that. Colt Cabana will still be going on. I don't know what we're going to be doing with Flip, whether he's still going to be continuing to try to fight this. We will have to see. I haven't really figured that out yet. Overall, segment's fine. 47. Again, higher than our average. And honestly, our average needs to be lower in the Mid-Atlantic region. I think we're only at 37, so we only need like a 30 or 45 total to get a big boost in that region. So overall, that's actually a pretty successful segment. Slightly less successful, but still not bad. David Starr debuts, cuts an angle about the NWA not being the best until he debuted. And, it gets a very good rating for his arrogant heel gimmick. He's a natural heel, great on the mic. He's going to be a great addition here. Also, extremely cheap for what we're getting out of him. I mean, I think we're paying him like $220 a show, and we're getting an in-ring performance of 50 out of him is not bad. And he quickly defeats Ziggy Dice, who I didn't even realize I still had on the roster. I think that was a oversight on my part from the save transition, because I think we had gotten rid of him very early in the NWA save at some point, but we'll have him here. It's fine. He eats a pin, or actually eats a submission pretty quickly. Segment is 40. It's not great, but it's a decent debut for David, I think. We have Eddie Kingston versus Eli Drake for the Alliance title. This match is fine. It's not great, but, could be worse. Eli Drake does defeat Eddie Kingston despite Eddie Kingston's threats, though a lot of it has to do with interference from his other boardroom members, specifically Hanson. We had a run-in with Rowe and Hansen, both attack Kingston after the ref was distracted by a fake injury by Drake. And Drake uses that as his advantage to make defense number 6 of the Alliance title. Unfortunate for Kingston, but he'll maybe have another opportunity in the future. And overall, not a bad match. Yeah, let's see, what gimmick do we have here? Recognizable momentum. He's currently a babyface. Yeah, why, I don't know. Didn't go particularly well. Apparently people didn't buy Eddie Kingston as a heel. Sure. In our main event, we have Brian Pillman versus Chris Jericho. The match is pretty good. So it had superb wrestling and great heat. Brody Lee interjects himself into the match and defeats Pillman and Jericho. Brody Lee pins Jericho with a running big boot following interference. That's funny because I actually wrote something different, but and he wins the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship. He was only added right before the match. So Pillman and Junior have a classic. Does pretty well. Jericho has 75. Pillman had a 50. We gain heat for the story. But Brody Lee interjects himself near the end, and we actually have a story beat to kind of follow up with the exact situation. Pillman also took a stunt bump to really look good here. Thankfully, no one seems to have gotten injured. So, obviously, in our final moments here, we have a battered Pillman Jr. is persevering and manages to hit his signature dire promises on Jericho. Jericho is stunned and falls to the mat. At that point, Brody Lee interrupts the match, handing the Founders Championship to the ref to cash it in. An exhausted Pillman just seems exacerbated and tries to take on Brody Lee. He can't. His tank is empty. Gets a big boot in his face and takes him out. Jericho rises and tries to quickly hit a Judas effect on Brody Lee, but the fresh Lee is able to reverse it into a signature big discus clothesline. He pins Jericho as Pillman tries to crawl and break the pin, but is just shy as his body gives out and he falls down just centimeters away from the breakout. Brody Lee wins the championship, celebrates in the ring, and clearly not going to be the end of things for Pillman and Brody Lee, former kind of tenuous tag partners temporarily, now going to probably be going head to head with each other. We actually, I think I screwed that up, but Founder Championship should have been removed from Brody Lee because it's now been vacated. But he is now the World's Championship champion. Pillman underperformed in this segment, and Jericho did fantastic, but overall leads with a final segment rating of 64, which is pretty damn good, and it leaves us with Brody Lee as the champion. Gives us a 54 rating, is not bad at all, actually much better than I thought it was going to be. Those final couple segments really helped us here. Increased our popularity to 24. We were penalized for not adding the booking. I screwed up the booking here, unfortunately, so we will deal with it because I realized that we couldn't actually add a late edition, and there's nothing I could do to let Jericho basically not win there, and it was easier to just unbook it and deal with it. Not a big deal, though. I think overall it didn't hurt us that much at all. I think let's praise people that need it. Nobody else is really upset about anything. I mean, there are people that are upset, but I don't really care. Tesla seems happy, so is Wheeler, so is Pillman. Overall, I think a pretty good show. Jericho is now gone. Served him his service here very well. Mayhem was last night for 4,000 viewers, which is not bad. It's a less than 0.01, but for what it is quite good, I think. Be curious to see what that gives us in terms of our financials, which we can look at real quick. Pay-per-view revenue. That was the revenue. It was apparently 4,000. not horrendous. I mean, overall, I think that's fine. Our performance for cash out at the end of the month is actually pretty good. Just kind of evidence that the financials in the new game 2020 seems to be much better. So we got a lot of work ahead of us. Probably next episode, we're going to look at the roster a little bit, look at what we're going to do for the tournament going forward, and maybe some tag teams that we want to add, maybe permanently to the roster as well, not just as a talent trade. Hope you guys liked Mid-Atlantic. I liked it. Booking it certainly seemed like it went pretty well. We do have some minor morale issues we have to look at, but I think we'll be fine. Thank you guys for joining me. I will see you next time.